back. Hey everybody, it's I have to echo my seat. Uh, how y'all doing?
Pretty good. And how about you?
I'm still working on my book.
As you see, I got my caffeine
How's
here.
Cool.
nice?
More
So
caffeine.
sweet. That's a lot of caffeine.
Added it.
So Eric, have you figured out your college thing for the winter semester?
My what? Sorry.
You had to drop out of college for this fall semester.
Yeah. So the fall semester goes all the way until the winter. It's not going to start again until the spring.
Ah,
So yeah. And then scholarships open up on November 1st. So right after Halloween, that's the first thing that I'm gonna do is apply.
you think you'll get another flat earther in your class again?
I sure hope not. I sure hope not.
So, being at the season this year, we're going to talk about the movies of Halloween and the multiverse of them.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people have commented how saying that they're really confused about about the timeline. So hopefully we will clear that up here.
But when we start at the beginning, the movie that started it all.
Yeah, the one, the only, the classic, Halloween. But yeah,
So
how about you two go first?
I haven't seen any of the movies, so this is all you two.
Oh, you know what? Let me show you something real quick.
But was this movie?
Right here.
Can't remember her name now. Was this her first acting gig?
I believe it was her first movie.
Oh, Jamie Lee
Or
Curtis.
one of her first. One of her first.
But yeah, back then Jamie Lee Curtis was not the big name that she is now.
I mean, she was the daughter of someone who was famous, Janet Leigh.
Yes.
Janet Leigh. In fact, Janet Leigh wasn't she the one who got stabbed in the shower in Psycho?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So
this is my Blu-ray set. It has the first 10 movies from the original movie from 78 all the way to the second Rob Zombie remake. So the only ones it doesn't have are the new ones.
Which makes sense, is because of that box set came out before those new movies came out. So yeah.
Yeah. So you could say that being in a murder movie is in their blood.
Hello, Tony and Dylan.
Hello.
So yeah, I won't be surprised if that's one of the reasons why Jamie Lee Curtis got cast. It's because of who her mother is. But yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis originally was not the first choice.
Who was?
I forget who. I forget what their name was. But yeah, perhaps somebody in the comments could clarify. But yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis was not the first choice, and also Donald Pleasance was not the first choice to play Dr. Loomis either. Originally, it was Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing, and he said no. And I think even I wonder if they were doubting if they could get Donald Pleasance as well, because he was a name actor back then.
Yeah, and Peter Cushing said no. It was because that the year before he did Star Wars, so therefore because of that he felt like that he was above doing low budget movies.
Oh, he was the general, the governor.
Yeah, Grand
guy,
Moff
General.
Tarkin.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and then they brought his character back in CGI in Rogue One.
Yeah, where he looked like a character from Star Wars Battlefront, the new ones.
Yeah. No, I mentioned this before, but but off topic to Star Wars, I cannot tell that one was CGI. I thought it was different. I thought it was a very good actor that looked like him.
You know,
Princess
it's
Leia
funny.
one.
It's funny how we mentioned the CG thing. We're jumping way ahead. Halloween actually had something like that in one of the later movies, but we'll get to that much later.
Yeah. One thing at a time. And also from my research, Christopher Lee also even was approached. And then afterwards, Christopher Lee said that he regretted turning it down. So, and then I thought, hey, when they announced the remake, I thought that they would cast him for that, but they didn't. So it sucks that Christopher Lee never got to have a second chance.
Oh, the guy that played Dracula a lot.
He played Dracula in the Hammer Dracula movies, and he also played Count Dooku.
He was also Saruman in Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
And Vandalia, I'm a little bit surprised. I would have thought you would have known him as Ansem the Wise from
I did know him that. That was, obviously I knew who he is, but that's. But you don't say. Oh, Leonard Nimoy was Xehanort from Kingdom Hearts. You say, oh, he was Spock. You don't.
But it's something he played, even if it was for like one game. Well,
so
two, but then they overdubbed him in the HD version.
The question for you two, getting back on topic, can you two see Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee as Dr. Loomis?
Honestly, no. Like, Donald Pleasance just owned it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
No.
Okay, and Dylan says, Anne Lockhart almost played Laurie. Okay, so that's who it was.
But actually, that is a good thing, because isn't the rumor, the Star thing, isn't the rumor that the mask was from William Shatner or something?
Yeah, it was. They literally just bought a Captain Kirk mask, they painted it white, they messed up the hair. That's all they could afford.
So about that, I wonder how William Shatner feels about that. Like,
He actually did. He found out at one point, and he actually approved.
Did he ever ask for money afterwards?
I don't think so.
But yeah, I mean, how would you feel knowing that one of the most horrifying faces in movie history is your face? But yeah,
I'm surprised no one has ever done a parody about that.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that on like Mad TV. But yeah, from my research, it was either the William Shatner mask or they're going to use like an Emmett Kelly mask. It was like a clown mask. It was creepy, but not as good as the Michael Myers mask. So yeah, I definitely think that they made the right choice by going with the William Shatner mask.
So what's the plot of the first movie? Walk us through it.
So it's a very simplistic plot. Michael Myers is a 6-year-old boy, kills his daughter. No, wait, kills his sister. Sorry.
Yeah, that would have been a 6-year-old with his.
Sorry. He killed his sister. And he gets sent to a mental institution. 15 years later, he escapes. And then and then he targets Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and her friends. Dr. Loomis, his psychiatrist, tries to stop him. And yeah, that's a pretty simplistic plot synopsis.
And I believe that's the reason the 78 movie is considered the best one, because it keeps it that simple.
Yeah, and that was a problem with the sequels. The sequels got overly complicated with all this Thorn crap, but we'll get that later. We'll get to that later. But
not just the Thorn crap, but like the other stuff, the other continuations did, timelines.
Yeah, but we will get there eventually. But yeah. Okay, yeah, here's the timeline thing. We definitely will need this. But yeah, so what did you think was the scariest scene in the original?
That is very tough to say. I mean, probably the most tense scene is the part where she's outside the house and like she's trying to get Tommy to open the door for her, and then very slowly Michael's coming at her, and like he keeps cutting to her banging on the door, cutting to him walking across the street. Like, I think that was probably the most tense of the scenes.
Oh, definitely. I also like that scene where Michael Myers grabs that kid, but you don't see his head. And I thought that because you don't see his head, it made that scene that much more effective. You know what scene I'm talking about, right? Is that scene where after Tommy...
Yeah, I know. It's the one where during the daytime. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of the most effective scenes. I also like how the opening scene, they make it seem like it was all done in one take.
Now, in the first movie, is there ever a reason given why he's targeting her specifically, or just pick the random girl?
There isn't. No.
That's why the original movie is so effective, while all the sequels failed. Because, giving Michael Myers a backstory makes him less scary. Because all you need to know about Michael Myers is that he has the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. And that is one of the creepiest lines in movie history. And Donald Pleasance just owned that scene. That's all you need to know about Michael Myers. Yeah, it's kind of like with the Joker in The Dark Knight. It made it more effective that you truly don't know how he got those scars.
Because you don't know his backstory. Like in the original '80s movie, it was the same guy that killed his parents. But that was a totally different character.
Yep. Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, and and we absolutely cannot. We can't just not mention the music. The music, in my opinion, is one of the most effective scores in horror movie history.
Done by John Carpenter himself, I believe.
Yep, and the reason why it was done by John Carpenter is because it would have been cheaper that way. And, and it really paid off, because I just can't imagine Halloween without the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Now, did Halloween come out before Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yes. Halloween was 78, Friday the 13th was 1980, and Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, was 84.
Yes, it was. 84, yes.
So this is like the original killer from the 80s.
Kind of. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out like a year or two before Halloween did.
Chainsaw Massacre came out either 73 or 74, somewhere.
Oh, even older. Ooh.
Yeah, and you also technically can count Psycho, which was 1960.
Yeah, Psycho is another one.
But there is an even older slasher movie called Peeping Tom, I believe. So yeah, Peeping Tom.
I really want to go back.
But this is really almost more of the modern beginning of the modern age of horror movies, almost.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, Halloween pretty much was the one like that set the, which set a lot of rules for slasher movies.
So do you want to do this in order of a release date or order of the timeline?
Order of release date, because I think that would make it easier.
Yeah, okay. Release date's much easier.
All right, so was Halloween 2 next then?
I guess so. One more thing. That end scene in the original Halloween is one of the most effective end scenes in a horror movie ever. Like where Jamie Lee Curtis says, "Was that the boogeyman?" And then Dr. Loomis says, "Matter of fact, it was." And then he looks out the window. Michael Myers isn't there, and then the Halloween theme is playing. That gives me chills every time. So if you don't have anything else to say about the original, let's move on to Halloween 2.
You good, Snick?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Halloween 2, the first of the Judith Meyers timeline, apparently.
Yeah.
Halloween 2 is an Judith Meyers timeline, huh? Well, it really splits off into two, but yeah, go on.
Well, people called it, the H2O.
Well, there's the Thorn timeline and the H2O timeline. That's what, it composes of two of them. Because both of them consider Halloween 2 canon.
Yeah, so out of all the sequels, that is the one that feels the most John Carpenter-esque. Probably because John Carpenter was forced onto the movie. He was forced on as a writer. And John Carpenter admitted that he was running low on ideas. So that's why he got intoxicated. And so that's pretty much the only reason why Michael Myers and Laurie Strode end up becoming related, because John Carpenter was having trouble trying to come up with a plot. So he got drunk and then he came up with that. And then John Carpenter later on said that he regretted doing it. And I agree. Making Michael Myers and Laurie Strode siblings made it less scary, in my own opinion.
So,
not to mention a little too complicated because they keep coming up with a million reasons why he wants to finish her off.
so exactly what was saying about the sister thing. So was she either another sister from the one that he killed, or was she supposed to be the one that he killed that survived?
No, in this original timeline, so his older sister that he killed was, how does her name slip my mind right now?
Judith Myers?
Judith Myers?
Yep.
Was that Laurie's name? Was Judith Myers the older sister?
Judith Myers was the sister that Michael murdered in the original movie.
Okay, and then what was Laurie's birth name when she...
Well, it gets complicated through the timelines, but I'm guessing her name in the Judith Myers timeline was Laurie Myers.
And then in the Rob Zombie timeline, it was different.
Yeah, it was like Angel Myers.
Okay. But yeah, so the whole point is, in this original timeline, Laurie was only a baby, I believe, at the time, and like she was just simply taken out of the house and put into foster care.
Yeah, I believe so. That sounds about right.
Yeah, like so basically Michael didn't even do anything to her in this timeline, at least not when the Judith Myers murder happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different in the Rob Zombie timeline. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. One thing at a time. But yeah, I definitely do like the new music in the movie. They kept all the old themes, but they gave it more of like a gothic feel. But yeah, and the kills definitely are more Friday the 13th like. From my understanding, it was because that the filmmakers wanted to compete. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something to mention with the original movie. Despite the dark subject matter, it was relatively free of blood and gore.
Yeah, which made it a very effective movie because it relied more on the suspense, while the sequels got more gory. And it's funny because they're trying to be more like Friday the 13th, while Friday the 13th ripped off Halloween. So it's funny how that works, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, the kills are a lot more brutal. Like there's that scene where Michael Myers grabs that girl and then forces her head into that boiling hot water. And then,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I saw like a whole kill compilation from like all the movies. I remember that one.
Yeah, and also there was that kill where Michael Myers forced that needle into like that one person's eye.
Oh yeah, I don't think it was their eye. I think it was like just their head.
Yeah, I think that you're right. But I mean, regardless though, that kill was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did he pick his? Who were his victims?
He was coming after Laurie in the hospital, which it makes sense that Laurie would be there after the events of the first movie.
Okay. Because I don't watch it much of it because I know in Friday the 13th he was after people who had sex a lot. I think.
Yeah, Friday the 13th is compared to Halloween, I think Friday the 13th is a lot more intentionally dumb.
Yeah, Friday the 13th is intended to be more gory, while Halloween is intended to be more suspenseful. And yeah, so yeah, there are still some very suspenseful scenes. Like there's that scene where where the camera pans down and you see Michael Myers' reflection on like that rear view window. That I will admit was a very effective scene. I also like that scene where Michael Myers is chasing Laurie and then Michael Myers just shows up. But with the lighting though, there was a bunch of red lighting. I thought that red lighting on Michael Myers' mask was horrifying. Hello, Eddie. But yeah, out of all the sequels, I will say that it is one of the better sequels.
It is.
But is it as good as the original? No. But compared to some of the crap we got afterwards, it is better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the ending, somewhat leading into Halloween 3, this was supposed to be the last Michael Myers movie. And then, then that's why Michael Myers blew up along with Dr. Loomis.
Yeah, like the AVGN put it in his Monster Madness videos. It's like in this movie, he's deader than he had ever been up to that point, and like most of the other movies. Like,
yeah.
Dr. Loomis sets off a big explosion, and last we see of Michael, he's still walking towards Laurie, but he's like burning all. His entire body is like burning, and it just slowly collapses.
So
yeah,
do they
definitive end.
So do they give him a reason why he keeps returning? That's not, or is it like a mythical, magical reason? Like,
it's more of a supernatural reason. It's just Michael Myers is evil in the shape of a human being, which is why at the end of the first movie and in the second movie and in a lot of the other movies, why he's credited as the Shape.
Well, the thing with Michael is that, like, say, unlike Jason and Freddy from, like, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, for the most part, they don't really fully explain why Michael is so resilient to damage, why he keeps surviving things that a normal person couldn't. I think the Thorn timeline's the only one that tried to give it a truly supernatural reason, but yeah.
We'll get to that one later, but yeah. Because of how big of a hit the original Halloween was, this one had a much bigger budget, and it shows it's because there's that scene like where Ben Tramer, Laurie's crush in the first movie, there was that scene of like the car crash, something that they never could afford it in the first movie, but now they can't afford it in the second movie, because the second movie had a much bigger budget.
all right, so is Halloween 3 next?
Yep, Halloween 3. So
apparently it's non-canon now.
Yeah. So
it never was canon.
Never was.
It never was.
Okay, so how about I give some trivia? So going back to what I said, Halloween 2 was intended to be the final Michael Myers movie. So I believe John Carpenter came up with the idea of making the rest of the series of an anthology series, kind of sort of like the Twilight Zone, kind of, but have it all be Halloween themed. That ended up being a big mistake because we had Halloween 2 with Michael Myers. If they would have went the anthology route with Halloween 2, people could have been more accepting of it. Well, the problem was the general public was not accepting of it. The general public wanted Michael Myers. And that was why the movie was hated for so long. And I remember when I first became a fan of horror movies, especially the Halloween series, I remember at that time I was a part of a lot of horror movie forums at that time. One of them was the Movie Zone. The other one was the HalloweenMovies.com and the Bloody Disgusting forum. But yeah, ultimately a lot of forums I was involved with. At that time, I purposely jumped on the bandwagon and hate on the movie simply because that there's no Michael Myers in it. And Halloween 3 had that stigma for the longest time that it's a Halloween movie without Michael Myers. Well, technically Michael Myers is on the TV in the background, but him as a main character in the movie, no. The movie has nothing to do with Michael Myers or the previous movies other than it being set on Halloween.
Technically there is a trailer for the original movie in Halloween 3 on the TV.
Yeah. Yeah, which, going back to what I said, I mean, that's the closest that you see to Michael Myers in Halloween 3. But then over time, But then over time, though, Halloween 3 started to gain a cult following. A lot more people started to appreciate the movie now. Back then, I remember like 20 years ago, this was always was regarded as the worst Halloween movie. But then over time, over time though, it started to gain more of a cult following, more of an appreciation. The movie actually didn't do that very well at the box office, and I will admit I've only seen the movie once. I saw it when I was in 8th grade or a freshman in high school. I haven't seen it ever since then. I've been meaning to rewatch it, just so in that way I can give it another chance, look at it with a more open mindset. But yeah, what did you think of Halloween 3?
Well, I thought, because I saw it pretty recently, because I showed you the Blu-ray set earlier. There's a copy of it in there. I thought it was fine. Like, definitely would have went, because it's its own thing. Like, you can't connect it with like the rest of the series. But like, had they continued the anthology route, maybe that would have been interesting. But yeah.
It would have been like, originally the idea for Halloween 4 was to have it be like a ghost story, but then when Halloween 3 underperformed, they immediately scrapped that. But now we're jumping ahead. I will admit though, the ending to Halloween 3, it is one of the best endings to a horror movie.
Yeah, where they leave it completely ambiguous.
Yeah, the ending was great, and I also will admit, I even thought that the music was fantastic too.
Yeah,
and
I think John Carpenter still did the music.
Yep. John Carpenter and Alan Howarth both did the music, and it would be the last time John Carpenter would do the music for a long time. But let's not jump too ahead.
Yeah.
It also would be the last Halloween movie done by Universal up until 2018.
Well, keep in mind the first movie was not done by Universal. Only 2 and 3 were.
Yeah, 2, 3, and now the new movies.
Yeah, the new trilogy. Because, I mean, jumping ahead a little bit, I have no idea who distributed 4 and 5, but like 6 to the Rob Zombie remakes were done by like Miramax.
Halloween 1, 4, and 5 were all done by Trancas International Movies.
Okay.
So what was next for the Rob Zombie thing?
Halloween 4.
Oh, we have a lot before the Rob Zombie remakes.
Oh yeah, we have a lot more until then. But yeah, Halloween 4. So originally John Carpenter was supposed to be a part of Halloween 4. Like, there was an idea of bringing Michael Myers back as a ghost, which kind of would intertwine, the original idea, but having Michael Myers there. But then after that, John Carpenter then sold the rights to Mustafa Akkad, and so the reason why Michael Myers' face is on it, and the reason why it says the return of Michael Myers, was to pretty much tell the audiences, hey, we know that we screwed up with Halloween 3 by not having it about Michael Myers or having Michael Myers. So, you want Michael Myers? This is it.
So Halloween 4 is the sequel to Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Yes, in this timeline.
And yeah, one thing I don't like about the movie is that, it has the original mask, right on the front cover. But the mask in the movie, it's, at least they have the mask, but it's not as scary as the mask from the first film.
And you have it, and you have it.
Yep. This was the mask that I wore last night at the Haunted Maze as Michael Myers. The mask is starting to get kind of old because, it is starting to rot at a few places. But
so you're one of the scarers there that scared people?
Yes, I was. I was dressed up as Michael Myers because out of all the costumes I've worn, this is the one that has gotten the strongest reaction out of people. But yeah, so
Uh, by the way, true story. When I was in 6th grade, I was Donatello the turtle, and I went to one of those little haunted woods at my school near my school. Somebody came up, and I whacked the guy with my staff, but out of instinct, like because he scared me. Even though
So yeah, would you agree with me that the mask in Part 4 doesn't look as good as the mask from Part 1?
It doesn't.
Yeah, it looks like something off of like Party America. One of those like discount Michael Myers masks. And
Yeah, it does.
and the one thing I didn't understand, so when Michael Myers exploded in Halloween 2, clearly he died, but I mean, they wanted Michael Myers back and they wanted to follow up on Halloween 2. So why in the hell are they keeping Michael Myers alive? That was something even what James Rolfe mentioned in his review of it during Monster Madness.
Yeah.
He makes a good point. Why in the hell are they keeping him alive? Wouldn't they want him dead after everything that he did?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I will admit, I thought that the music was great. John Carpenter didn't come back. Instead, who did the music was Alan Howarth. And I thought that Alan Howarth, did a pretty good job with the Thorn timeline music. But yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis did not come back.
Jamie Lee Curtis didn't want to come back.
So speaking of the mask, we know how it got in real life, but do you know how it got the mask in the movies?
He just found it when he started his rampage in the first movie. Like he stole his boiler uniform from some random employee who was wearing it after he escaped from the mental hospital, and then he found the mask I think in a store or somewhere.
Yeah.
And he finds a new mask in Halloween 4. In fact, I think they shove in a scene of him grabbing it.
Yeah, he pretty much steals it at a store. But yeah, Tina, to answer your question, Michael Myers is at a hospital or something like that during the beginning of Halloween 4, and they're keeping him alive. Maybe to study him, but if he's truly that dangerous, kill him. But yeah, that's what I was talking about. But yeah, so Jamie Lee Curtis, her career was starting to take off at that time, and Jamie Lee Curtis didn't want to be typecast with doing horror films because we have to understand, Jamie Lee Curtis is not a fan of horror films. Jamie Lee Curtis has said that in a bunch of interviews. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis certainly does appreciate all of the fans.
Okay, so in this timeline, she was killed off. She was killed off in the past.
Yeah,
it said she died of a car crash.
Yeah, and so instead, the main victim was her sister or daughter. It was her daughter, Jamie Lloyd, and then and of course they named the main character after Jamie Lee, which I have to admit, the thought of Michael Myers going after a young kid is a horrifying thought.
Yeah. Because here's the thing with Halloween 4, even though it has glaring problems, like how are Michael and Loomis still alive, stuff like that, Halloween 4 is generally seen as decent by a lot of fans.
Oh, it is.
And jumping ahead a little bit, it does have a good ending setup.
Oh yeah.
That Halloween 5 chose to blatantly ignore.
Yeah, and a lot of the early Halloween films, they have some of the best endings ever. Like Halloween 4, during that end scene, where the evil was passed on to Jamie.
Yeah, where she basically mirrors exactly how Michael was when he was a kid. Halloween 4 ends with her presumably stabbing her mom to death. Loomis comes in and sees it. He's like, no, and then he wants to shoot Jamie right there because he knows she's just gonna end up like Michael, but then they all stop him, and like he's just left to just lament and sorrow that Michael's evil lives on.
Yeah, and that was done a lot more effective than Halloween Ends, but one thing at a time. But yeah, I really liked the kills in this movie. I liked how there was that mirror of that kill from the first movie where Michael Myers stabs that guy with the knife and then he's just hanging there. But this time, instead, he is pretending to be some guy. He's like pretending to be one of their characters' dads holding that gun. But then Michael Myers tricks them, and then he stabs them with a shotgun, through the wall.
Where he get the scene where he gets the shotgun.
I will admit, that kill was badass. But I will admit, Michael Myers did look a little bit too beefed up in this movie. I thought he was a little bit scarier when he looked more normal-like in the first two movies. But they definitely way beefed him up in Halloween 5, but one thing at a time.
No, it's funny because I don't think we mentioned like the actors who played Michael Myers himself yet, because truth is, so many people have played Michael throughout the movies. Like, probably from the first movie, I think there was like 4 or 5 people alone who played him, but probably the one who's best known is Nick Castle, who I think played him for most of the movie, like when he had the outfit on.
Yeah, and then during the end scene of the original movie, he was played by Tony Moran. And
specifically during the scene where Laurie gets the mask off of him, which is coincidentally the only time we ever see his face fully exposed. Well, in the original timelines, anyway.
Yeah, and Tony Moran has gone on record saying that originally he thought that the first Halloween was not going to be a big hit. He thought that nobody would ever see it, but he was definitely proven wrong. Now it's funny to think that that's what he's most well known for.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I was a kid, there was this movie I saw called Major Pain. In fact, I remember Vandalia remembers me referencing it a couple of times. Mm-hmm. It's a really dumb movie, but it wouldn't be so much fun to watch if it wasn't. I ended up looking up who the director was. Nick Castle.
Yep.
That Nick Castle. Michael Myers.
Yeah, isn't that a weird thought that Michael Myers directed that movie?
Yeah.
So what's this Ian talking about?
I wish they explored more. Yeah, so basically Halloween 3 we mentioned was the anthology movie. Silver Shamrock, pretty much was the main plot of Halloween 3. So yeah, so people have tried to connect Halloween 3 with the rest of the movies, but that's really hard to do because there's that scene in the third movie where they're watching the original Halloween.
Yeah.
So good luck with that. And there's that scene in Halloween 4 where briefly Michael Myers has blonde hair. Oh gosh, that.
Or when the mask has blonde hair, because I think, or no, there was also a scene in Halloween 4 where they hadn't painted the mask and it was like a flesh pink.
Yeah.
But yeah, I brought up the actors because I do not remember who played him in Halloween 2 or like most of the movies, but 4, he was played by one of the other actors who was a bit more known for playing Michael, a guy called George Wilbur.
Yes, and then in Halloween 2, he was played by Dick Warlock, and Dick Warlock also was the stunt double for Richard Dreyfuss in the first Jaws.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Halloween 4 he was played by George Wilbur. Halloween 5 he was played by Don Shanks, and then George Wilbur came back to play Michael Myers in Halloween 6.
Yeah, at least the producer's cut. I think they may have gotten a different guy for the theatrical cut, but that's jumping ahead. Why don't we talk about 5?
George Wilbur primarily played Michael Myers throughout the entire movie, but there was only one brief moment where he's played by someone else. I don't know
Yeah.
who the person who played him briefly, but primarily he was played by George Wilbur.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess we don't have anything else to say about Halloween 4. Move on to Halloween 5. All this.
Yeah, just getting it out there, 5 is a contender for worst movie in the series, largely because, unlike some of the other contenders for worst movie in the series, 5 is largely devoid of redeeming qualities.
Yeah, like the cringiest part is like those goofy ass clowns with that clown music. That is cringe beyond belief.
Clowns.
Yeah, like...
Was this take the clowns? Was this around the same time that the original It came along?
It came out 1 year before It, the miniseries.
Okay.
And yeah, oh man, that clown music is so cringe. I actually did a rant of Halloween 5 on my channel years ago, but I will admit a lot of the music done by Alan Howarth was fantastic. A lot of it's very atmospheric, but that's one of the only redeeming qualities about the movie. The new character Tina is annoying as hell, and and they killed off Rachel way too soon. So
yeah.
Michael Myers can't even catch up to Jamie Lloyd in a freaking vehicle. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then
there was the Man in Black, which even the filmmakers didn't even know what to do with the Man in Black. So
yeah.
The point.
Then of course I was actually watching a review of like the entire series from this one YouTube channel. There's the one scene like in the Meyers house at the end, which looks nothing like how it did in the original movie. There's specifically a scene where Michael has Jamie cornered. Jamie calls out to him, calling him uncle. And he actually takes off his mask and has like a bit of an emotional moment where he sheds a tear. And then when she tries to get emotional with him too, he suddenly goes back into murder mode, puts the mask back on. And he actually argued that's probably one of the worst Michael Myers moments ever, specifically because he's not supposed to show that kind of emotion. Yeah, especially since it comes right the hell out of nowhere.
Yeah, and Michael Myers is pure evil, and that made him look like a pussy when he's supposed to be pure evil. There were some pretty cringy moments in Halloween Ends, but that definitely is up there with one of the worst moments in the entire series. I definitely do agree. But yeah, not a whole lot of good things to say about Halloween 5, but there's not a whole lot of good things to say about Halloween 6 either.
Well, the thing with Halloween 6 is that, well, 6 is an interesting case. So, a promoted fanboy of the movies was actually hired to screenwrite. And, long story short, they filmed the movie, they did everything. Then, they apparently screen tested the movie. Well, the whole thing is they went with, like, the whole Cult of Thorn thing. And, like... it's called the Thorn timeline for a reason, but really, the Thorn thing doesn't really come in until Halloween 6.
So,
and
pretty much,
Halloween 6 isn't on this thing. We're on this list.
Curse of Michael Myers. People just call it Halloween 6 because that's what it was supposed to be called, and that's where they stopped numbering.
It also was supposed to be called Halloween 666, the origin of Michael Myers, and something that James Rolfe pointed out, it's a huge coincidence that the Thorn timeline has pretty much the same subtitles that a lot of the Pink Panther.
Yeah. Like, I think he even jokingly called it like the Pink Panther timeline.
Yeah. And that was something that I noticed too, and I was waiting until somebody was going to point that out and, somebody else to notice. But yeah, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, well, anyways, getting back to the production. So, they created the movie, all seemed... well, it was a production nightmare, supposedly.
What?
And what happened?
Oh, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was a production nightmare. They apparently test screened it for what one of the actors described as a theater filled with 14-year-old boys, and they didn't like any of the Thorne stuff. And so they ended up reshooting a good chunk of the movie. And here's the thing. It was a little bit complicated because Donald Pleasance had passed away at that point.
Yeah, and originally Donald Pleasance's character was supposed to die in Halloween 5, but then he liked the script so much for Halloween 6 that he came back. But the original script that they were going to use for Halloween 6 wasn't used, and the script that they ended up using was utter garbage. And then the director that they hired didn't give a crap about the franchise. He pretty much only did the movie pretty much as like a multi motion.
Yeah, basically it was for like so that he could get like a multi-picture deal with Miramax.
Yep, if he were to direct that and one of the Hellraiser movies at that time.
Yeah, and the thing is, so for the reshoots, they couldn't get Donald Pleasance, obviously. And the thing is, apparently the director, his name is Joe Chappelle, I believe,
Yep.
he did not like the Dr. Loomis character, so he cut even more of his scenes out.
So it just blows my mind like that he even directed Halloween 6, because I don't even think he even really was a fan of the first movie.
Yeah, I believe he was not a fan of the movies.
So yeah,
what resulted was a theatrical cut that was critically panned for being completely nonsensical. But then there was the original cut of the movie, which was, it's often named the producer's cut. A bootleg of it was floating around for many years, and like 2 decades later, they finally gave it an official release. And for a couple of years, lots of people were praising the producer's cut as being the better cut of the movie because it's largely a lot more coherent because it goes full into the Thorne stuff, whereas the theatrical cut kind of had it but quickly dropped it.
It is a better movie, but not by much. It's still a bad movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, James Rolfe put it like this, or no, I'll put it like the way I haven't seen the producer's cut in its entirety because, well, I don't own it. I only know like some of the differences with it. The thing with the producer's cut is it's a lot more dull. I believe there's a lot less Michael Myers kills. There's a bit more intrigue since a lot of Dr. Loomis's stuff is in, but still, it's the Thorne stuff is just not that interesting. And then there's one of the more infamous moments where, so one of the big things with Halloween 6 is that Jamie is like now a teenager. And by the way, there was another messed up story regarding Jamie's original actor, Danielle Harris, where she got herself legally emancipated just so she could appear in the movie because they were going to pay her like crap. And no, she got herself legally emancipated so that she could appear in the movie because they wanted someone who was a bit older than her. And what happened was they decided they were going to pay her like crap, so she decided to walk away, and they hired somebody else anyway.
Yeah, the one who they hired instead was J.C. Brandy. J.C. Brandy got a lot of crap for so many years for replacing Danielle Harris, but it wasn't J.C. Brandy's fault. J.C. Brandy was just doing her job.
I mean, that's how it is. People do jobs in entertainment, and if it's not exactly how people want it, they get harassed.
Pretty much. And yeah,
So is this Black Christmas thing a connection?
No, it's just another slasher movie that's being referenced.
It came out before
Halloween.
But anyway, so there's an infamous moment in the producer's cut.
Yeah.
Where Jamie Lloyd is the father of Michael Myers' kid. Okay, Michael Myers, he's not really much for sex. He's more of like a killer. So that seems out of character. And 2, that's disgusting. And why would Michael Myers have sex with his own niece?
With his own niece.
So is this basically? I was gonna say, is this basically what they tried to do in Star Wars 9?
What do you mean?
Where all of a sudden they has a granddaughter now for no reason?
Well, in the theatrical cut, it's for no reason because they don't say who the father is.
Yeah, they don't say which is an improvement in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, and so yeah, and it makes no sense for the plot because it creates a huge plot hole. Why? Okay, if Michael Myers' motive is to kill his entire family, why would he have sex with his own niece just to create another family member for him to kill? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, there's not a lot.
Yeah, and that's on top of the fact that now the theatrical cut. In fact, what's funny is that James Rolfe said he actually preferred the theatrical cut in a way, only because it does give a lot more brutal Michael Myers kills.
Right.
And not to mention, it is so incomprehensible that it actually can be enjoyed in some way. Like, there's this weird music video style editing where it's like seizure-inducing flashing and like other parts.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the editing for Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think this might be the only Halloween movie that uses a big rock track. Like, a lot of the soundtrack is like electric guitars, weirdly.
That's something that should only exist as like fan covers on YouTube. But to actually use it in a Halloween movie, it makes it less scary.
So what made this the end of this particular timeline?
The ending made no sense.
In both cuts.
And so Halloween 6 underperformed at the box office. So then afterwards, the filmmakers then decide, okay, we need to rethink what we're going to do. So I guess might as well jump into Halloween H2O. Halloween H2O originally was supposed to be a direct-to-video movie. And even before Jamie Lee Curtis came on, they had a plan that they were going to ignore 4, 5, and 6.
So it's funny because I actually believe that at least at one point there actually were plans to acknowledge 4, 5, and 6 because there apparently would have been a single scene where Laurie overhears a student talking about like the murders that occurred in 4, 5, and 6, and then Laurie deduces that Jamie was killed and she goes into the bathroom to vomit.
Yeah.
I believe there was also a comic that tried to tie 6 with H2O, but it's just a comic, so yeah.
So is this the one? I think this is the one that came out when I was around my high school graduation time.
Yeah, it came out in '98, and the thing with H2O is that but in this timeline, only the first 2 movies happened. 4 through 6 did not happen, and that's explicitly mentioned in the movie because it said that Michael had not been seen since the events of 2.
And yeah.
No, they also mentioned Dr. Loomis not dying in Halloween 2. Like, they kind of mentioned that he was around for a while, but then he had passed away, like, at some point between the movies. And because, I mean, Donald Pleasance was already dead at that point, so they couldn't have brought him back.
There was a narration of his lines during the opening scene.
I think they had a voice actor, like, doing, like, a impersonation of Pleasance.
Yeah, I believe it was Tom Kane.
Yeah, Tom Kane.
And yeah, so, but yeah, it pretty much was the first Michael Myers Halloween movie to not have Dr. Loomis as one of the main characters. It was because they didn't have a choice because Donald Pleasance passed away.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, one movie that H2O took a lot of inspiration was actually Scream.
Yes, it did. And the reason for that was Scream was a huge hit. Scream pretty much resurrected the horror genre.
Well, the slasher genre anyway, and maybe horror in general.
But so it probably was the only way how H2O could have gotten funded as if it had the Scream feel to it.
And what's funny is that I believe Kevin Williamson, who was the screenwriter of like the first two Scream movies, he was on board. I think he was the screenwriter of H2O, or he was like involved somehow. And they have the same. I believe Miramax did them all.
Now, question: this is time period that I first saw this thing was it H2O or Next One Resurrection that played the whole they made like a game show.
That was Resurrection.
That's Resurrection.
Okay,
but we'll get there eventually. So I really liked what they did with Laurie's character in the movie. You know, having her be the victim, but then afterwards she is fighting back. I absolutely loved that character arc, and H2O should have been the ending to the entire series.
That's what a lot of fans feel still to this day. They felt like the perfect trilogy of the movies was 1, 2, and H2O.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I mean,
with H2O though,
I will say a little trivia fact about H2O. I believe it has, for all the movies in the series, I think H2O has the lowest body count, or at least the lowest amount of on-screen kills from Michael. Like, there's only 3 in the movie.
Yeah, and I will admit, the music feels kind of off to me. You know, it feels like something off of a Tim Burton movie. And
to me, it sounded like it belonged to a Scream movie.
Which actually some of the musical scores from Scream actually was reused in H2O.
Like even so we get the Halloween music, like the classic Halloween stuff, like it's like orchestrated in a way that the Scream soundtrack would be.
So in this one, Laurie's alive again, and they're still siblings.
Yeah.
Yes. Like so basically they kept in the car crash thing from the Thorn timeline, except they made it to where they changed it around to where she faked her death so she could hide from Michael.
So yeah, and then Jamie Lee Curtis decided to come back because it was the 20-year anniversary, and you know, pretty much she was doing it as like a tip of the hat, you know, to all the fans, you know, as a thank you. Jamie Lee Curtis wanted John Carpenter to come back to direct it. John Carpenter almost directed it, but there was like a pay dispute, which it would have been great to have John Carpenter back, you know, as the director. So instead, they got Steve Miner, who did Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3.
Yeah. It's funny because I saw Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3 recently.
And what's funny, there is that brief moment where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is wearing a hockey mask, and I believe this is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's either his first movie or one of his first movies.
Yeah, I believe it was one of his earliest movies.
And there's also that scene where they briefly play Plan 9 from outer space, which is regarded as one of the worst movies ever made. But yeah.
I mean, there's also a part of the movie where they have Scream 2 on the TV.
Makes no sense.
I mean, I think it was meant to be a shout-out because the original Scream has a scene where Randy's watching Halloween 1.
Which makes no sense. But yeah, so one of the most infamous things about this movie is that the mask does change throughout the entire movie. There is a brief moment where the mask is CGI and it looks like garbage.
And then, of course, we have the ending where...
Yes.
So it ends with Laurie decapitating Michael. And the thing is, they wanted this to be the finale. It's like Jamie Lee Curtis was doing the tip of the hat, like you said, but it's over now. But the series producer, Mustafa Akkad, he was not going to let it go.
Because
like, he did not want Michael to die at the end of the movie. He wanted to keep making movies.
Then Halloween
So, like, at the last minute, I think they convinced him to let them film the scene as it was. But as soon as they filmed that scene, they were already thinking of a way to get around it.
And then that's where we get to Halloween Resurrection. In my opinion, one of the all-time worst Halloween movies in the entire series. Oh, man.
Yeah. Resurrection is a contender for the worst movie in the series. But the thing is, lots of people do prefer it to Halloween 5. Only because it's the funny kind of bad.
Like, with Busta Rhymes karate chopping Michael Myers going trick or treat, motherfucker. But then
No, you got to get it right. It's trick or treat, motherfucker.
So what was with the let's do a game show in the killer's house thing?
that was
Well, jumping ahead. Well, that's jumping a little bit ahead. First, we got to deal with Jamie Lee Curtis coming back just for the opening. Because the thing is, I think they contracted her to appear in the movie after H2O. She agreed to it on the condition they kill her off in the opening so she wouldn't have to make any more.
How little she knew.
with that made it feel like two different movies. What they should have done is, how about instead of Busta Rhymes coming in at the end to save the day, how about instead it's Laurie Strode, and then how about instead Laurie dies as a hero trying to save them from Michael Myers? Because
I mean, after all, the poster is false advertising. She's on the knife with the cast, and she never actually meets them in the movie.
yeah, exactly. And there's also false advertisement in Halloween Ends, but we'll get there. But
yeah, Halloween Ends is an interesting case.
But yeah, I will admit, I thought that the music was better in Halloween Resurrection than in H2O. But, oh man, there's so many bad moments in Resurrection. Like, Michael Myers getting electrocuted in his nuts. Like, what were they thinking? And there's also that moment where Busta Rhymes wearing a Michael Myers mask, yelling at Michael Myers. Just that sight alone was hilarious.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those movies where it's so bad it's funny. They make a complete mockery out of Michael Myers.
Definitely one of those so bad it's good things. Why some people, like I said, prefer it to 5, because 5 had like no redeeming qualities to it. I mean, 6 didn't have much redeeming qualities either, except for maybe the theatrical cuts, like batshit insanity.
I will admit, I do prefer.
And I guess the producer's cut being different.
I do prefer Halloween Resurrection over Halloween 6. Still not.
Yeah.
Still not saying.
Yeah.
And I did like the set they used for the Myers house, but all the characters, I didn't give two craps about them. I didn't care if they lived or died, and the ending was so predictable. And there were talks of doing a Halloween 9, but then all that got canceled because of how at that time horror remakes were extremely popular at that time. And
yeah, I think one of the plans for a sequel, because in H2O Laurie had a son who was played by Josh Hartnett. I think one of the sequel ideas was having him come back. At least, or so I heard, but they didn't go through with it.
I think that would have been a great idea, for a sequel. And
yeah, there was also plans for a movie called Halloween, which would have been a crossover with the Hellraiser series.
Yeah, and for that, they actually would have gone John Carpenter back.
Wow.
Interesting train of thought. But yeah, so one other idea that I heard for Halloween 9 was that they were going to have the son or the daughter of Dr. Sam Loomis taking over for his dad, and then pretty much continuing on his legacy. I heard that idea, but I remember at that time when I was a part of all these horror movie forums, I remember I would talk to a lot of people saying, hey, do you think we ever will see a Halloween remake? Everybody would reply saying, no, don't remake Halloween. But then we got that. 2006, it was announced Rob Zombie was going to direct it. People were shocked about that because before, Rob Zombie said that he thought remakes were stupid, and Rob Zombie actually was approached to direct the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, but he said no. So instead, he remade Halloween, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So what
basically the thing with the Rob Zombie remake is that it's part remake and part prequel
Pretty
because because in the original movie, the scene of like Michael stabbing Judith to death, that was just it. It was like a couple of minutes long and that was it. And then you fast forward to like the present day. That part of the movie is a lot longer in the remake.
Oh, definitely, big time, man. I really liked the remake when I first saw it back when I was in middle school. As time goes on, I noticed more of its problems. Like some of the editing is kind of off, and I don't like the idea of giving Michael Myers yet another backstory. You know, saying that Michael Myers was a bullied kid at school.
Oh yeah, he had a trashy family life
Yeah.
where
Bullies-
literally the only family member he cared about was his baby sister.
But how's what from kindergartner bullying or first grade bullying? That's when you got.
I don't know what age he is in the remake in these flashbacks.
I'm gonna say
Well, they're not flashbacks. It's just the opening of the movie. I don't know what age he is, but he's not that young.
I'm gonna say 5th or 6th grade. Michael Myers, at a younger age, he is older than the original Michael Myers. But
Because the original Michael Myers was only 6.
yeah, in the remake, I'm gonna say he's 12 or 11. Not
Yeah,
exactly
so
there. And I also will admit, I didn't really like what they did with Laurie, but it was cool about how they brought back Daniel Harris.
yeah, Daniel Harris plays Laurie's friend in this.
Yeah, so it was cool to finally get her back, you know, for the remakes.
And then you have Malcolm McDowell playing Loomis, and then you have Brad Dourif playing the sheriff.
What I will admit, what I thought was a missed opportunity was getting Ben Kingsley to play Dr. Sam Loomis.
Oh, Ben Kingsley.
He would have been spot on perfect because I think that Ben Kingsley looks exactly like Donald.
Oh, yeah?
So I think that was a missed opportunity. I mean, Malcolm McDowell, I thought that he did a fine job, but man, Ben Kingsley though, he would have been spot on perfect.
I mean, it's funny because the remake version of Loomis is not a very popular character.
Especially in the sequel. Oh man.
Yeah.
The sequel was the very first Halloween movie I saw at the movie theater, and I remember that I actually snuck in to watch the movie, even though I remember that my parents allowed me to watch it, but I had to have a legal guardian to watch it. So I went with 2 friends. They wouldn't let us in, so my friends went to go see G.I. Joe, while when I snuck into Halloween 2. And oh boy, if you thought the first Rob Zombie Halloween was bad, the first one makes the sequel look like Citizen Kane.
Yeah, Halloween 2, Rob Zombie, is another contender for the worst movie in the series. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even supposed to happen. Like, what happened was Rob Zombie did not want to make it, but what happened was the producers were like, well, we're making this whether you're on board or not. And Rob Zombie only came on because he didn't want them to tarnish what he did with the first movie.
And it shows. It shows that he didn't want to do it. And the whole thing of forcing Sherry Moon Zombie, you know, into the movie felt shoehorned in. The whole thing about the white horse was shoehorned in. And
So
there's that moment during the end. I forget what version. Michael Myers speaks.
It's in the director's cut because it's funny with the Rob Zombie remakes. There's theatrical cuts and director's cuts. The director's cuts are the only ones that are easily accessible. Oddly enough, the theatrical cuts don't have a whole lot of releases out there,
Which is odd.
and but then again, the director's cuts are the better versions anyway. Most people would say, but yeah.
if he didn't participate, would his the second movie, would his name still be on it or not? Would they still had to use his name?
No, they would have still made it just without him.
Yeah,
But yeah, you were saying how Michael actually talks in the director's cut, and what's his one line of dialogue?
he says die. And, oh man, it's
to
so
Loomis.
bad. It's right up there with Michael Myers crying in Halloween 5.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we get to Halloween Kills, there was another curious moment that I kind of discovered online, but we'll get to that later.
But yeah, and so I hated what they did to Dr. Loomis. They made him to a total asshole. And it's funny. Rob Zombie has said he's not a fan of cameos, but there's a cameo in this from Weird Al. Who could take that seriously?
Like,
and of course, there's what goes on with Laurie during the movie. Like, she's like in a big funk throughout most of it. And then
I got to ask now: is there a Weird Al polka Halloween song now because of this movie?
No, when Weird Al's in the movie, he's just making a bunch of jokes. You know, he's making the comparison joke. To Mike Myers.
Oh, wasn't there a moment in H2O where they wanted like like a scene involving Mike Myers somehow, but he refused to do it?
I have no idea, but
like I think around that point, like they wanted to do like a Mike Myers scene or something, or like a reference.
But yeah, I wonder how Mike Myers feels about that, knowing that he has pretty much the exact same name as one of the most famous horror movie villains of all time. I wonder how he feels about that.
I haven't found too much of what he feels about it.
Like, I mean, actually, that'd be a pretty parody. Michael Myers is Michael Myers.
Yeah, and I didn't like what they did with the look of Michael Myers. Making out to be a hobo and whatnot.
Yeah, his mask is like partially like it ripped.
Yeah. Oh man, it was. And some of the kills are laughably bad. Michael Myers is continuously stabbing somebody when they're clearly dead.
And it's funny because he's like this, and then he's like this.
Right. It's so unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
And the whole opening scene was just a dream, which is lame.
Yeah.
The first half of the movie, I'm not going to lie, it was pretty decent. And then it was revealed to be just a dream. And what also pissed me off, we don't hear the Halloween theme song until the end credits.
Yeah, and then but then, like James Rolfe said, in the first remake, you're hearing it a lot. It's like they're compensating.
Yeah, but, to be honest, I kind of disagree with James Rolfe about that.
Oh, yeah?
To me, it's just not a Halloween theme. It's just not a Halloween movie if you don't have the Halloween theme song. The fact that they didn't have it till the end credits pissed me off. And, Laurie felt kind of annoying to me in this movie. But, I thought it was cool, like, how they killed off Daniel Harris. Because
yeah, and then when you see the sheriff's reaction, many people did point out that Brad Dourif's acting during that is actually pretty spot on.
Oh, it is. I will
Not to mention, they actually use, like, real childhood photos of Danielle Harris for, like, the montage of that.
Right, which I thought was great. And, it's great because Danielle Harris has been running away from Michael Myers since part 4. And then he finally got her.
Yeah, because he technically didn't get her in part 6.
Yep. He got her character, but not her herself.
Yeah.
And then this would be the last movie of the franchise for the longest time. I remember there was supposed to be a Halloween 3D back when the 3D craze was really popular. And then there was supposed to be Halloween Returns. by the guys who did Saw 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. And then basically they took too long to make it, and then the Weinstein Company, who I think made the Rob Zombie remakes, they lost the rights, and I think they went back to Miramax.
Yep.
And what happened eventually was that Blumhouse Pictures got the rights, and then David Gordon Green and what was the? I know his first name's Danny. What was his last name? I think it was Danny McBride.
Yeah. Danny McBride, who was
they ended up getting the rights to make another Halloween movie, so they began production on what eventually became the 2018 movie, which some people were codenaming Halloween H40. 40 years later, they got Jamie Lee Curtis back, and that led to the 2018 movie.
The one thing I hate about the 2018 movie is the title. The title is so lazy. It's just called Halloween. Like, at least give it a subtitle. That's so lazy, and it's confusing.
They could have called it Halloween Returns or something like that.
Yeah, they should have kept that title.
And it's funny because Scream 5 earlier this year did that exact same thing.
Yeah, and
so many people just call it Scream 5.
Yeah, and I hate how all these new horror movies are doing that trend of having it be a sequel to the original, but calling it the exact same thing as the original. I hate that. At least give it a number or a subtitle. But other than that, I honestly genuinely did enjoy the movie. It was
the 2018 movie is, from a professional critic standpoint, is the second best movie in the series after the original.
So in this, okay, so if I remember in the trailers of this movie, that they're like saying everything that happened before is just like a story, a book or something, or
yeah. So basically, I forgot to mention that John Carpenter is actually involved with this new reboot timeline.
Yep.
I'm not sure what people are calling. Like, some people are calling this the Blumhouse timeline because of the production company. Some were calling it the final timeline, even though it's clear to a lot of people that they're probably going to make more, just in a different timeline. So yeah, they had Jamie Lee Curtis back, and the curious thing is, they even got Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers actor for most of the original movie. Except he doesn't play Michael for most of the movies. He just takes on he just has like a brief cameo in each of the movies. In the 2018 movie, specifically, he steps into the Michael Myers outfit for the scene where Laurie and Michael see each other for the first time in 40 years. Like that scene where like Laurie shoots at him and it turns out it was just his reflection in the mirror.
Yep.
But for the rest of the movie, he's played by a new actor called James Jude Courtney.
Yep.
So, and he's the one that we see unmasked and everything, even though we never see his face fully. It's always like partially obscured.
Yep, and I loved the music because John Carpenter came back. I loved how it had the actual John Carpenter feel to it.
Yeah, and now getting to the timeline, in this timeline, only the original movie happened. They got rid of the second movie specifically so that Laurie was no longer related to Michael. And like you said, there's that one scene where it's like, oh, wasn't it her brother that did all those killings? And then her granddaughter's like, no, that wasn't her brother. She wasn't her brother. No, she wasn't his brother. That's just a story people made up.
Which makes me wonder, why would people make that up about those?
I'm thinking the reason why is because out of everybody who died like the night that he attacked, he's the only one. Well, I keep getting mixed up. She is the only one that got attacked by him that lived. Or one of the only ones that lived.
So then it probably led to people speculating as to why Michael Myers went after her.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a controversial move by the movie.
So in this movie, he's been locked up 40 years then, pretty much?
Yeah, he's been in the mental hospital for 40 years. Dr. Loomis died at one point, and now there's like a new doctor named Dr. Sartain, I think, who's been Michael's caretaker. So the way, and it's funny, a couple of years ago, I actually did an episode of the podcast where I talked about the movie, like when it came out. But anyways, so these two people who run a podcast, or like, I think it's a podcast, they are like investigating like the story of Michael. So they come to the mental hospital and they talk to Dr. Sartain. They present, somehow they got a hold of Michael's mask. So they go to see him and they present it to him to get a reaction, to see if he'll say something. Like, they're obsessed with him talking, like saying why he like did the murders he did, and well, he doesn't. He's capable of talking, but he doesn't want to.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't like, that plot twist, with Dr. Sartain.
Oh yeah, that part where he stabs Officer Hawkins. Lots of people were upset. I mean, thankfully Halloween Kills revealed that Hawkins was alive, and then there's the stupid moment where Sartain takes off Michael's mask and he puts it on.
Yeah, I will admit that was questionable. Like, why would he put it on?
Yeah, I remember when I saw that in the theater, because this was the first movie in the series I saw in theaters. I was like, oh no, is he going to take over as the killer? But then, so Michael is passed out, because Michael got hit by a car and he's passed out. Sartain puts him in the back of the police car with Laurie's granddaughter, Allison. And basically, Sartain's waiting for Michael to wake up. Michael wakes up, and it's like you're thinking, I'm thinking at this point, oh, is Michael not going to wake up? Is Sartain going to be the villain for the rest of the movie? Nope. Michael wakes up, he grabs the doctor, throws him out of the car. Sartain's just like, no, say something, Michael, say something. Michael just lifts his boot up, caves his freaking head in, and Michael, in that moment, just goes, no, this is my movie, bitch.
Yeah, and I thought that end showdown between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers I thought it was really intense.
Yeah.
I love that conflict between Judy Greer and Jamie Lee Curtis throughout the entire movie. I loved that. I also loved the new character, Allison, played by Allison.
Andy Matichak, I think is her name.
Yeah, Andy Matichak. But yeah, and it was a return to form. It felt more John Carpenter-like than a lot of the previous movies did. And, I think that this should have been the final movie.
I thought so too. And truth of the matter is, I think the producers of the movie were like, they wanted to be the end too. Well, but if it was successful, they did have ideas of how to continue it. But luckily, the 2018 movie does end in such a way, just like H2O. If you want to pretend kills and ends didn't happen, you can.
Where the fire, using the fire or something?
Where you can just assume that the fire killed him and that's it.
Yeah, I did like that. And, but yeah, shoot, there was something I was going to say about Halloween 2018 I totally forgot about. Yeah, I totally forgot I like that one kill where the lights are turning on and off, on and off.
Yeah, that one. Yes.
I thought that worked great for Michael Myers. And, then Halloween Kills.
Okay, I got a question about that one. Was this, since this happened during the height of the lockdown pandemic, was this even in the theaters? Did it get released straight to?
So what happened with? So it was all when Kills and Ends went into production. It was always the plan to make them back to back. But COVID delayed both their releases by a year.
Yep.
So, Kills was supposed to come out in 2020 and Ends in 2021. They were postponed to 2021 and 22.
Yep.
And the thing is, I think the original plan was for Ends to be a direct sequel to Kills, but then they had to readjust because of the COVID delays.
And oh boy, we'll get to
But talk about Kills first.
I do prefer Halloween Kills over Halloween Ends.
I think lots of people do, but yeah.
Kills is a lot more brutal. I mean, hence its title. What my favorite part of Halloween Kills is the flashback scenes to.
Yeah, they flash back to the first movie, and here's the most interesting part. They bring in Dr. Loomis, and when I saw that in the theater, I was like, how did they do it? How did they do it?
So, from my research,
and
they found a guy who looked exactly like Donald Pleasance.
Exactly, they did. And they found a guy who looked like him, and they applied a little bit of makeup so that he would look exactly like him. And they got the voice actor who voiced Loomis, like briefly, like in an audio recording or something in 2018. And they got him to dub over like this double actor.
So, okay, so now I just remember what I was going to say about the 2018 movie. And it does apply to all of these movies. A lot of people were really upset by the fact that Laurie and Michael Myers are no longer siblings. But I actually loved they did that, though, because, Michael Myers and Laurie were supposed to be siblings in the first movie. And then, I loved how they had Michael Myers go back to what he was in the original movie. Now, yes, Kills and Ends aren't as good as the original, but at least they have Michael Myers back to what he was in the original movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that flashback scene is by far the best part of the entire movie. I actually kind of wish that we would have had that as the entire movie.
Oh yeah.
Because and yeah, I loved even the feel of it. Even the feel of it felt like something right out of the 1978 film. Yeah,
Yeah, like they even recreated, like if I remember, it had like a film grain kind of thing. Like they tried to make it look exactly like the 70s.
Yep. And but the rest of the movie does have its problems. Like there is that unintentionally funny moment where Michael Myers kills that girl in the nurse costume.
Yeah, and he like kicks the door into her when she's trying to aim a gun at him, and the door hits the gun. It goes back, and she shoots herself by accident.
When I saw that at the theater, everybody was roaring in laughter, and that's not a good sign. And I did like the whole mob part of it because
that was like the whole thing. Like that was the purpose of the movie, to show how like mob mentality just has more downs than ups.
And I heard something about the leader of the mob was something about the babysit kid that he was babysitting.
He is Tommy Doyle, who was one of the kids that Laurie was babysitting in the first movie. Also, Lindsay was the other one, right? Lindsay Wallace.
Yeah.
Right?
So
the curious thing here is that Lindsay is played by the original actor, like the kid from the 78 movie. Like she came back 40 years later to play the part again. With Tommy Doyle, they were actually going to approach Paul Rudd, who played him in Halloween 6, to reprise the role, and apparently he wanted to, but couldn't because of scheduling conflicts. So they got Anthony Michael Hall instead.
Yeah, and Paul Rudd said that he couldn't do it because he was doing Ghostbusters Afterlife. And the original actor was Brian Andrews. They never even approached him because apparently he's been having some mental health problems. And he also hasn't done a movie in a long time. And Brian Andrews made it clear on Facebook that he was very upset by the fact that they didn't bring him back.
Especially when they brought back the original actor for Lindsay.
Yeah, and I will admit, it was really cool to see a lot of the old characters back, like Sheriff Brackett. Fans have been wanting to see him back for the longest time, but I felt like his character was kind of wasted in Halloween Kills. I wish that they gave him a. I wish that they gave him a little bit more to do.
Yeah, they also brought back the nurse who was helping Dr. Loomis, like in the original 2 movies in H2O, and then she dies again, like how she dies in H2O.
Yep. And yeah, and there were some pretty intense moments, like during that scene where Lindsay's hiding from Michael Myers. I also liked that scene where Michael Myers goes into his childhood home, which is now taken over by this gay couple.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
so in the beginning of this movie, Michael is saved by the firemen.
Yeah, he's saved by the firemen, and this was another kind of dumb moment. So what happens is it is realistic that the fire department would respond to like a big fire like that. So one of the firemen goes in, I think the floor caves, one of them falls down, and Michael kills them right there, and then another fireman's like reaching out a hand for the one that fell, and then Michael grabs it instead. Michael comes out, I think, wielding like one of the firemen's tools, and then all the other firemen are there. The first thing they do is they grab one of the firemen has a hose. He sprays Michael with it. It's like at that point what you think was going to happen, because obviously Michael goes in and curb stomps all of them.
Yeah, and I was surprised by the fact that they brought back the sheriff, because I thought it was clear that he died.
You mean Hawkins?
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people were happy that he came back because he was, especially since he was killed off by one of the more controversial characters of the 2018 movie.
And I also liked how they brought back the asshole boyfriend, but yet,
And they kind of redeemed him, too.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was something that I actually made, I made that as, like, a pre-prediction video before it was announced that what the movie was going to be called. At that time, I said, please, for the love of God, don't call it Halloween 2, because that's not going to make any sense to call Halloween Kills Halloween 2.
Since it's technically the 3rd movie in this timeline.
Yeah, so I will admit that I am glad they got more creative with the title. But yeah, I did like how they did that to the boyfriend character. I will admit, I was shocked at the ending when it was revealed that Judy Greer's character died by Michael Myers.
Yeah, I mean, so it ends with the mob led by Tommy Doyle, like, just giving Michael the unholy mother of all beatdowns. And then Judy Greer, like, deals, like, the final blow by stabbing him in the back. And then lots of people were making, like, a Thanos joke where they're, like, Michael stands up and, like, in his mind is like, you should have gone for the head. And then he slaughters the whole mob, and he slaughters Judy Greer last.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing. Like, it's funny because I saw a YouTube video about this recently. I don't think it's true because James Jew Courtney was apparently asked about it and he denied it. There's one YouTube clip of the scene where Michael's attacking Allison, and then Allison's like screaming, "Do it!" and then Judy Greer comes in and like stabs Michael in the back and like takes his mask off. And she uses the mask to like lure him to like the mob, or like the mob beats him down. When he gets up, you hear him doing like his trademark breathing. There's some people who swear that Michael has a line of dialogue here.
I never heard any lines of dialogue. I just heard
like basically, if you like, people have said if you watch this clip of Michael getting up and like staring down Judy Greer, in his breathing, you can very vaguely hear like what sounds like a whisper. Basically, what they say the line is "give it back."
Huh.
And the way but it doesn't sound clear. It kind of goes like, "Did you hear that?"
A little bit, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a stretch.
Yeah, like James Jew Courtney himself denied it, but it is interesting because I would argue if Michael were to talk, it would be like in that vague kind of like breathing, like whisper. Like, I mean, that's my opinion at least. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, then Halloween ends. Oh man, all that build up from the previous two movies is all thrown away in the garbage.
Yep. I mean, it's funny because the thing with Kills is that it had an original ending that was included on the Blu-ray release. Specifically, it's the scene where Laurie tries calling, I think her name's Karen. That's Judy Greer's character. She calls Karen, only hears Michael's breathing, and then she deduces that Michael killed Karen. Then she's like, "I'm coming for you, Michael." And then it ends with her exiting the hospital with the knife.
Which
That's not how the theatrical cut ended.
Which is cool because that actually is a callback to the scene in the original movie. After when Michael Myers killed Linda.
Yeah.
But yeah, Halloween ends. It's primarily focused on a brand new character named Corey, which there was no build up to him in any of the other two movies. So
Now-
it felt shoehorned in.
So was this supposed to be like the birth of the new series of starting the Corey as a killer?
No. Here's the thing. Halloween Ends is probably the most divisive movie in the series. Like, most people online are shitting on it big time. But the thing is, a friend of mine a couple of friends of mine actually, they actually told me they really liked it.
To each their own, but I just
and I can kind of see where they're coming from, because really the point of the movie is that Michael might, basically jumping ahead a little bit, the ending of the movies, the point it's trying to get across is that Michael might be gone, but his evil lives on. That's kind of the thing it was trying to push. And the thing with the marketing made it seem like it was going to be a big showdown between Laurie and Michael. And yes, there is a showdown between them, but it's
the last few minutes.
Only in the last few minutes, and it's literally right after the stuff with Corey ends. And the whole thing is, from what I understand, it was not the fault of the people who made the movie. It was all the marketing team. Because David Gordon Green, the director, he said the movie was not in its current state. We don't know what it would have been if the COVID delays didn't happen, but in its current state, it was not meant to be a big Michael and Laurie showdown. And and I remember for the year between Kills coming out and Ends coming out, Jamie Lee Curtis, David Gordon Green, they were all saying that the movie was basically not going to be what fans were expecting.
Yeah, and they even were saying that they already knew fans were not going to agree with the direction that they're going to go with the movie. But at that time, we had no idea what exactly they meant. Now we know what they meant. And, I do like the idea of, evil taking on a new shape. I do like that. It's just, I just didn't like the way how they executed it.
Yes, many people it. The thing is, even though I said a couple of friends like it, one of them specifically mentioned, yeah, it would have been nice if the Corey character was introduced in one of the earlier movies. That way there would have at least been set up to it.
Yeah, but it just sticks out like a sore thumb at Halloween Ends when there's no introduction to him. And Corey was more of the sympathetic type, while Michael Myers wasn't. And I find that kind of hurt the intimidation factor. And then there was this love relationship going on with Corey and Allison. Corey straight up tells them, I killed a guy. But yet she is still dating him.
Yeah. I remember this same friend that was saying people were criticizing Allison for doing the so-called out-of-character moment. But at least this one claim I heard, Allison wasn't made questionable choices in 2018 in Kills as well.
And
But at the same time, this is years after 2018 and Kills, after she's matured a lot more. So I guess you could still make an argument for it being kind of stupid.
yeah, and what also was dumb, Michael Myers was able to stop an entire mob in Halloween Kills, but yet Corey was able to knock him out in Halloween Ends.
Yeah, like in this movie, when you see Michael, like he is the weakest, like most frail we have ever seen him across all the movies. And it's funny because like when Corey like lures that police officer into the sewer where Michael is, Michael needs Corey's help to kill him. But it's fun when you see Michael doing the kill. It's like he's kind of. It's like it's giving him like a surge of energy, like it's rejuvenating, like giving him like his formidable strength back.
And there's that cheesy moment, like when Corey says, "Oh, teach me your ways, Michael Myers." That was cheesy.
All right, so I've been holding on to this question for a while since we got to the movie. What's this about? Social commentary thing about? Do you know anything?
Oh, real quick. When Kills came out, I remember there was one interview that claimed that Ends was going to be social commentary about COVID. And I was like, oh, hell fucking no. And thank God that turned out not to be true because they don't even mention COVID in the movie.
Nope. Never did.
And, that just would have been so stupid. Like, what would COVID have had to do with friggin' Michael Myers?
He's spreading the disease with his knife.
No, leave that to Dirty Dog from Cool Cat Saves the Kids. That cringe.
Yeah, and Halloween Kills did have social commentary though with that mob, you know.
Well, the mob mentality,
with how they thought they found Michael Myers, but it actually wasn't.
It was just another patient that escaped from the mental hospital.
I actually can't see a mob doing that in real life.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, Halloween Ends. I guess the commentary, you know, don't bully people.
There's lots of like people make assumptions, I suppose. Like, I don't know. Like, I honestly paid more attention to just the Michael may be gone, but evil lives on message they were trying to get across.
And Halloween Ends just wasn't as suspenseful, which really hurt it for me. And
yeah, like the thing is, most of the people for one thing, Michael only gets like a handful of kills in the movie, including Corey. But Corey gets like the bulk of the kills, and the thing is, with like one or two exceptions, everybody, like pretty much everybody, kind of deserved it because of like the asshole things they were doing.
Yeah, and you know, and that hurt the suspense for me because the characters were so unlikable when all of them got killed. And now, Ian, I get it that they wanted to do something different. I applaud them for doing something different, which is what I liked about Halloween Kills by having the mob. I thought that was different, but Halloween Ends, in my opinion, it was just done in such. It was just the execution that was the issue.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit, I did like the ending with the showdown.
Yeah.
Jada finally got her wish. Finally got to kill off Michael Myers. Granted,
yeah, like the way Michael is killed in this movie is one up to the original Halloween 2 with how definitive it was. Like, she slits his throat, slits his wrist, Allison breaks his arm, and after he's dead, just to be sure, they kind of like carry off his body like in a memorial like service. They take him to a trash compactor, they drop it in, and it's grinded into chunks.
Yeah, he is dead. Now, I will admit, I thought it was cooler in H2O when she cut his head off with the axe, but I do like that Jamie Lee Curtis finally got her wish to finally kill Michael Myers, because that was.
And she survives, because there was lots of concern that, especially from the trailers, that she was going to die with Michael.
So why do they hate her? Apparently,
it's because they has information about her. I did like that.
Let's see.
But if I'm being
So
honest, out of all the movies in the new trilogy, Halloween Ends is by far the worst one.
it is definitely the weakest of the three of them.
Michael Myers isn't scary in it. He's a pussy, and I just didn't feel the suspense. And
This is a small nitpick. I wish they gave us a full view of his face. Like,
So
because
is there any
it's
way?
not like they hadn't done it before. In the original movie, they did it, and she takes the mask off, like when she's like dealing like the slitting throat, like final blow. But they never show a full view of his face. Like you can see his whole head, but like it's always like shown from like the side or like whatnot.
So was there any opening to have like another sequel or another timeline
No.
breaking out from this one?
No, like this timeline is done. If they make another one, it's gonna have to be a different timeline.
Now you mentioned of each of these timelines, the worst of the movies of each timeline. So of those 3 that you picked or 4 that you picked, which one was the worst of the worst?
all right, my opinion for worst in the movies, worst in the entire series. Halloween Resurrection is up there. Halloween 5 is up there. 6 is up there, and Halloween Ends is up there, and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is up there.
If I had to rank the movies from best to worst, it'd probably be the original 2018. I guess the original 2 and H2O would go in there. Then probably Kills. I would probably put Ends right after Kills, only because compared to the, or maybe I would put 4 and then maybe Ends, like 4 and Ends would go then. Or no, 3 should probably go like above Kills. And then, let's see, of the worst ones, which would be 5, 6, Resurrection, and the Rob Zombie movies. Rob Zombie 1 would go on top. Then maybe, this is going to be tough to decide. Let's see. Maybe 5, I think I would want to put on the bottom, only because there's like, and then maybe 6 right after 5. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 would go like way beneath. It would be right after the first Rob Zombie remake, but like way below it. And then Resurrection would come after the Rob Zombie movies, only because of the so bad it's good factor.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. But yeah, so it's just a shame that Halloween Ends has to be the last movie with Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's another criticism. If it wasn't the last movie, people would have liked it better.
And it's also a shame it's probably going to be the last movie with John Carpenter as well.
And Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's a shame, for Halloween Ends to be their last movie, like really?
Lots of people were actually saying if Ends was Kills and Kills was Ends, it's already way better.
But really, at this point, if they would keep her in the thing, either get a new actress or do the CGI thing.
They
with her
probably
face
would have to do a new timeline, or they would have to do another remake,
or maybe just have a new character,
or a new character.
So I said I can imagine them now CGI Jamie Lee Curtis's face on the next actress.
That would be bad. I don't think they ever would do that though. But they did do that with Skeet Ulrich in the new Scream, so I guess I could.
Yeah, they did. They did. Oh yeah. One more thing about the reboot trilogy, about like not the reboot, like the Blumhouse movies. For 2018, Danielle Harris actually put in a call to see if she could cameo in the movie. They told her no.
Yeah, because
apparently they never invited her for the other movies either.
Yeah, like from what I heard, Danielle Harris was trying to play Karen Strode, but they said they wanted to go into a different direction. They never called her for the other 2 movies, but then
From my understand, she wanted to have Jamie in the movie somehow.
Yeah, and so Daniel Harris did finally meet Jamie Lee Curtis at like the after party for Halloween Ends.
Oh, she
And
hadn't met her before?
nope.
Wow.
So yeah, so it pretty much went down like this. Daniel Harris approached Jamie Lee Curtis and told her who she was and who she played. Jamie Lee said, I haven't seen those movies. I don't know who you are.
Aw.
So,
But yeah, I do got to work tomorrow morning, so I kind of want to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So, anything coming up on your channel you want to advertise?
For me, on Eric the Tyrannosaurus, I'm doing a debunk of vaccines cause autism. On Eric Marathon 92, I'm planning a short horror film, and I'm planning Things That Piss Me Off, the movie 3.
Oh.
So, but to tie in the fast, are you going to use the Michael Myers mask in the flat Earth, your flat Earth movie?
Probably not. Probably not.
Awesome. And I don't think Snick, you're not doing anything on your channel anymore. Pretty much,
not
right?
too much. Like, I don't do a whole lot of like live streaming, let's plays, or reviews anymore. I've actually been doing a lot of SFM, like pictures and animations, and very recently there's a YouTube channel called Dark Lord Jado, or he goes by DL Jado now. He did a review of the video game Saw 2. He actually got me to do an animated part for him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like it was like an honor because I've been watching for like almost 10 years. Like,
so did you ever finish your review that you did that you're co-oping with what's his name?
No.
Xbox Shrek thing.
No, I used the clips for an April Fool's joke like about a year ago, but yeah, I never made that. But no, I mainly just do. Maybe I'll use my YouTube channel. I mean, now that because I uploaded a lot of the SFM stuff to Twitter, but now that everybody's talking about abandoning Twitter, I might switch back to YouTube.
Oh, because of the buyout.
The buyout, thing? Yeah. I mean, and it kind of sucks because I've been talking a lot more on there, and some people have been talking to more people too.
Okay, before we go, you guys know anything about the multiverse timeline of the Terminator movies?
That is way too much to handle for this closing. That is way too much.
Well, I know, but I
am aware of it, but yeah, it is extremely confusing.
All right, well, we'll talk about that another time, I guess. In the meantime, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.